Welcome, everybody. The April 21st, 2023 Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting is now in session. It's noted for the record that commissioners are attending this meeting via the web, and a quorum of commissioners is present for today's meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed on the internet, and a link is posted on the Oregon Lottery website. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Patel,
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Here.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Here.
Chair Sathoff.
Here. Will the clerk also inform the commission of who is in the meeting?
Yes, we have Carrie Hemphill, Kathy Ortega, Kathy Stromberg, Chris Scaro, Matt Shelby, Mike Wells, Nate Carter, Sar Richards, Shad Barnes, and Tina Erickson.
Thank you. Members of the public had the opportunity to provide written public comment to the commission for this meeting. Could the clerk please confirm that no public comment was received?
That is correct. We did not receive any public comment this month.
Thank you. With that, I think we'll move to Director Wells' report.
Thank you, Chair Sathoff. Members of the commission, good morning. I'd like to start today's director report with some video lottery news. If you'll remember, back in December of 21, we paused the processing of applications for new video lottery contracts because of some inventory constraints. Since then, we have had a cross-functional team working to determine the best way to ensure the long-term health of our video lottery program. I am happy to report we are ready to propose some new administrative rules which would permanently lift the application pause and create a more sustainable video lottery program. We believe this is a positive step forward to ensure the long-term success of our video lottery program and ensure lottery maintains its mission to maximize revenue commensurate with public good. Chris Scaro is going to provide more detail regarding the proposed rules during her rulemaking update later in the agenda. But before closing this section, I wanted to take a moment to thank the lottery staff who have participated in the development of these proposed changes and their hard work and planning. This has been a long journey for all of us to get to this point, and we are excited about the changes and are excited to get things kind of back on track with video lottery. So more to come later in the agenda. Moving on, we have recently started a new Win for Life campaign. Our Win for Life game, which originally launched in 2001, has a loyal following, but thanks to a new campaign on social media and our app, we're hoping to introduce new players to the Win for Life dream. As a reminder, the $2 game offers 46 ways to win a prize on every ticket, with the jackpot being $1,000 a week for the rest of the winner's life. So we're excited to increase our players on this one and hope this new campaign does that. This week, Lottery joins Solve and communities across the state in support of spring beach cleanup events. Lottery employees can participate in the cleanup events utilizing our beneficiary volunteerism leave program. So we're excited to get a bunch of lottery employees out on the beaches this weekend and help out. Regarding sales, we have a detailed update coming later in the agenda from staff. So I'm gonna not steal their thunder and defer to them to provide you guys with the sales update. A few winter stories. David from Portland, who has played lottery since his early 20s, bought a keynote ticket at his neighborhood 7-Eleven. David is visually impaired and with the help of his son, discovered his ticket was a big winner when he hit the jackpot for $78,581.60. David plans to take his son on a trip to Disneyland and is going to put the rest in savings for a rainy day. Nikki of Portland was playing Big City 5 Diamonds with her husband cheering her on at the Lucky Corner Bar and Grill in Portland. She's never won a prize this large and was excited when the bartender told her that she had hit the jackpot of $14,614. The couple has 7 children and are planning to take the kids out for fun activities with the winnings. They will also be paying off a number of bills that they have. And lastly, Sheila of Estacada almost fell off her chair when the video lottery game she was playing started brightening up and getting loud. After putting in $20, she won big, $10,500 at the Tollgate Inn and Mercantile in Clackamas. Sheila plans to put the majority of the winnings into savings, with the rest going towards a much needed repair on her truck. That concludes the director's report for this month, and I will turn it back over to you, Chair Sathoff.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you ahead of time for those of you that decide to go this weekend to do the beach spring cleanup. I know that we have a number of people that I otherwise in other entities I'm aware of that are doing that, and I hope it's a really good turnout. We'll move to the minutes now. The minutes of the previous commission meeting have been circulated to the commission in advance of today's meeting. If there are no changes to the minutes, is there a motion to approve?
I move that the minutes of the Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting held on March 24th, 2023 be approved as final as presented today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Aye.
Chair Sathoff.
Aye. For the record, the motion is passed. And with that, I know that Kathy is on. We'll move to the financial report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Sathoff. Good morning, Commissioners and Director Wells. For the record, my name is Kathy Ortega, Chief Financial Officer for the Oregon Lottery. We're going to go over the operating statement for the month and third quarter ending March 31st. Looking at the monthly operating statement, we have net revenue of $125.6 million on a budget of $123.9, about $1.6 million favorable to budget. Commission and game vendor charges always have a negative variance when we have a positive revenue month due to the fact that many of these charges are calculated as a percent of revenue. Net profit it was $90.6 million on a budget of $8.8 million favorable to budget. Looking at the year-to-date statement, which is at the end of the third quarter of the fiscal year, net revenue of $1.059 billion on a budget of $1.048 billion is $11 million higher than budget. Same thing on the commission line as what I said previously. Net profit of $692.8 million on a budget of $641.3 was about $51.5 million favorable to budget. On the schedule of services and supplies, year-to-date basis, we had a slight timing difference on intergovernmental charges, but as you can see, as you look at the variance column for year-to-date, we're under budget on most of these expenses. And I also have the balance sheet as of March 31st for you to take a look at today. And going through the packet of materials, because we are at the end of a quarter, I have 2 schedules for your consideration. The capital outlay report, which had an initial approved budget of $57.2 million. We've spent about $33.9 million, mostly on VLTs, and we are still in the process of receiving VLTs and having those delivered out into the field. So I don't believe we're going to have all of those by year end. So there will be some of that carried over into fiscal 24, but we have an unspent of $23.3 million, but I think most of that's going to go away by the time we get to year end. And I also have the schedule of modernization spending. Initially, you approved 60 point, I don't know where I got that one from. It clearly says 20.693 million. We spent about $6 million to date, leaving about 14.9 million. But Chair Sathoff, I know you're going to ask me the question, so let me answer it for you. We've had extensive meetings about this from a planning perspective, and we do believe that money is going to be spent by the end of the year. So that's probably the first time I've ever made that statement, but I know you're going to ask. And so there you have it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the financial report for this month.
Well, Kathy, you answered my question, so I'm not going to ask that, but any other questions or comments from the commission?
I just had one question on the services and supplies. So it's great that it's running so, with a positive variance, but it seems to be about half of what it should be year to date, with just like 2 buckets there, the professional services and then remaining. Is that just a timing issue? I mean, it's an expense, so I was just curious.
I think you'll see that that variance is going to diminish as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
We'll take a look in June and see if I'm right. How's that?
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the monthly financial statements?
I move that the Oregon State Lottery financial statements for a month ended March 31st, 2023 be approved for the record as presented today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Aye.
Chair Safoff.
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Chris, I know you're on. Shall we move to rulemaking? And there's, as you noted earlier, there's a lot going on here, and it's fairly significant work for the lottery. So really appreciate that up front.
Thank you. Yeah, this Chair Sathoff, Commissioners, Interim Director Wells. For the record, my name is Chris Scaro, Rules and Policy Analyst for Lottery. And yeah, I have one rulemaking update. It's a bit longer than normal, so I'm going to share my screen so we can walk through these. Hopefully this works. Did that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. So as Mike mentioned, we are ready to move into the next phase of our VLT equipment management activities, including lifting the pause on processing applications that's been in effect for some time. So we think this is good progress and reflects well on where we're at with our inventory. At the same time, we did take advantage of the pause to evaluate the entire VLT ecosystem and make recommendations about a more sustainable approach moving forward. So to that end, we, in addition to the repealing the pause, we have some proposed policy changes that we think will strengthen the program over the long term. So there's 5 changes essentially. So we'll repeal the pause, replace that with a quarterly waitlist process, increase the weekly sales requirement for VLTs, increase contract application requirements, and limit the use of temporary contracts for video. So I'll walk through each of these in turn here in more detail. So repeal the pause, we're going to replace it with a wait list. Any person interested in applying for video can go online and be added to the wait list. The rule would require that every quarter the director make a determination about the number of applications that we can take for the coming quarter, and then we'll pull those from the wait list. We can pull them in the order received, or we can do some prioritization based on our statutory goals, based on sales or geographic considerations. We did have some exemptions during the pause, and we would like to keep those in place with the wait list. So our tribal tribal-owned business applicants, as well as certain types of video contracts would be exempt from the wait list. So that is, and you can jump in with questions or you can save them to the end, whatever you prefer. So next up is increasing the weekly sales requirement. So for those who aren't familiar, I think that we've always had a sales floor for our retailers. So they need to meet a certain amount of sales. And if they don't, Lottery has had authority in rule and under the retailer contract to remove underperforming terminals and put them to better use, such as relocating them to a higher performing retailer who doesn't have 6 VLTs yet. The current sales floor is 2,667 average dollars played per week per terminal, but that amount has not been updated at least since 2012, but I would say probably even longer than that. And so we are proposing to increase that to an average of $10,000 played per week per terminal. We know that relocated terminals generally see increased sales, so this would allow us to maximize the value of each VLT without expanding our overall footprint. And for context, in 2022, the average retailer had more than $26,000 average played per week per terminal. So we think most of our retailers will be comfortable meeting this new sales floor, but not all will. We do have about 12% who would be at risk to lose one or more terminals. For the record, the rule doesn't require us to immediately remove underperforming terminals, but rather it's authority to periodically consider our inventory needs against retailer sales performance to determine if and when removals would occur. We do have historical data on the impact of VLT removers on a retailer. And although the impact varies, we generally find that most of their play just migrates to the terminals that remain at the location. And also for the record, we don't remove when the retailer only has one VLT. All right, next.
Chris,
Oh,
Chris?
go ahead. Yeah.
I apologize. I didn't get my unmute fast enough on the first slide.
Oh, okay.
Just a real quick one. And I also want to say, I believe that in one-on-one meetings that Mike and you have had, that you probably answered this question. So I'm just not remembering. Could you give me, I understand the basis for an exemption when we have a situation where the business is selling or there's just a change of ownership. But help me understand the basis for the tribally owned business and the exemption there.
Well, it's really a policy choice for us. We are required to promote positive relations with the federally recognized tribes in Oregon. And in 2021, I believe very early in the year, we developed an alternative disclosure process that they could use to apply. And we were trying to build good relations with tribes, and we had exempted them at that time from the pause. And we think these contracts are good for our relationships with these tribes, and so we'd like to just go ahead and let them go through. We don't see that many of them, and so it's just an opportunity for them to move.
That's fine. I just was not remembering what the rationale.
Okay.
It sounds like it's basically a policy. This supports the policy choices we've made with respect to trying to develop better relationships there. So that I just was trying to figure that one out. Thank you.
Yes, you said it better than I did. Yeah.
I have one more question regarding that, going to add on to what Marty Lynn said. How long have we actually had this recognized collaboration with the tribes? I can't remember when that came in.
Well, we adopted our official policy, I think, early 2021. So it's a fairly new policy, and Or were you referring to the alternate disclosure for the tribal businesses?
No, I was referring to what you said. You addressed
Okay.
it first off the bat. I was just trying to remember when that happened. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So the next change is to require that business applicants be open and operating for at least 9 months before starting an application for video. I believe this is a historical requirement that we had, and we'd like to get back to it to improve the likelihood that our retailers have long-term success with us. The rule does, though, have a waiver of this requirement for current retailers with 2 or more locations who meet certain requirements. And then the last change is limiting the temporary contract process for video. So this is a shortened contracting process, allows us to install VLTs sooner than they would if they went through the regular contracting process. However, the issue with VLTs is we could install them and then they don't qualify for a regular contract. So we just prefer that new installs go through the regular contracting process, which is slightly longer, but temporary contracts would still be available for other types of contracts like traditional and some types of video where we don't install new terminals. And so those are the changes in a nutshell. So of course, there's full rule text and supporting documentation in the meeting materials for those who are interested. And as for next steps, we've been currently contacting people who are impacted or interested in these changes. So we've reached out to all current video lottery retailers, of course, to explain the changes and answer their questions, and also let them know that they can comment on the rules through May. We also have contacted interested legislators. We presented to a legislative committee earlier this week and teed up some of these changes. So making folks aware that these are out there and that they can comment to us. So in early June, I will report to the commission and director on all comment received. And then at the June commission meeting, we would present final recommended rules for your consideration. And if approved, they would take effect on July 1st. So happy to answer questions if you have them. Otherwise, that is all I have.
Chris, I know that we've had, we meaning the lottery, you, Mike, others have had a lot of conversations about this, and conversations externally. Can you give us any color on whether or not you're getting any external feedback before we issue these as to the direction we're going? Or I know that you'll give us a report on the next meeting about public hearing. I'm just kind of wondering who's weighed in at this point, if anyone.
So, I mean, I would say that our experience so far is a lot of questions and interest. People are concerned about our retailers, so want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about the impact of the changes to retailers. And so a lot of questions. I think we've thought through these proposals pretty well, so we're prepared to answer that and explain where we're coming from. And so I think that has gone over okay. Yeah, I think people are understanding that we do need to find efficiencies in our system. We're obviously, the state is dependent on video and our retailers depend on video in their businesses. And so I think people are supportive of the concept of improving the health of the overall system, but that's not to say they don't have questions or, concerns. So.
Yeah, Chair Saathoff, I would just add that this, it's been a long time since we have made changes this significant in the application process. So I think, as Chris had said, there's just a lot of questions from people trying to understand the why behind it. Why did we choose this change? and how is this going to improve the ecosystem. This has been a kind of a come one, come all approach for a very long time. And so, there are definitely people concerned that they may not get picked, right? Or they're going to be stuck on a list. But we really believe that, over the next year, that wait list will shrink and that there really won't be that significant of an impact that the wait list will be able to handle quarterly as we go forward. So, definitely a lot of questions because it is a big shift in the way we're conducting business. But I think long term, the resiliency of this program, the consistency of how we operate is going to be much, much better.
Yeah, I know you've all done a lot of homework on this. I appreciate that. And I also really appreciate the rationale of what you're doing. I know it's going to be uphill and applaud all of you for trying to make this improvement, but we'll hear more on the next meeting. Any other questions or comments for Chris or Mike from the commission about the rule changing?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Wilcox. I have a comment to make. I agree with the rule changes as proposed. The Oregon State Lottery was formed to help fund critical services for all Oregonians. We need to maximize those funds for state agencies, and we must continue to operate like a business to help Oregon stay on a positive path forward. And we also need to be mindful of keeping the businesses that are operating the lottery profitable and help them maximize their profits as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hearing no other comments or questions, I think, thanks, Chris. We will move to staff updates.
Good morning, Chair Safoff, Commissioners, Interim Director Wells. For the record, my name is Tina Erickson, and I am the Lottery Product Manager. Today, I'm going to be sharing the presentation, and if you'll give me a moment. Let's see if somebody can just let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, it looks great.
Perfect. Thank you. So today we're going to go over in the beginning some product performance, and then Shad is going to jump in at the end of this presentation and share some information on some digital efforts that have happened. What I wanted to start with is our Scratchits for this last quarter. One thing I wanted to note was the fact that this quarter had 12 weeks versus 13. So the sales will average out by the end of the year. And right now you're seeing that we are a little off between what our actuals and our forecast is, but it's not concerning. What we are seeing is that our Scratchit sales are continuing to trend downward, and they are still above what we would consider the pre-pandemic side of this for sales. We know that when everything was shut down on the video side, our sales exploded, but we are seeing now that they are coming kind of back down to a level. When we look at the last several years, though, we are still about 5% ahead when you look at some of these sales going on in business year 19 and 20. Are there any questions here?
I overall on the when I look at the Scratchits, I have sort of a question that's probably not a good question, but something I keep thinking about. Sure. When I look at the trends, it's clear to me that people are obviously, and have been for it's no news, attracted to the big jackpots, the Powerball, the Mega Millions. And more of those are contributing to our kind of bottom line. But the other scratchets do seem to either level off or be negative to forecast a lot. So I'm wondering if you've ever looked at or done any research, or do you look around the nation, and is just the tenor of what people want to play for scratchets changing, or is it really just a function of how much money people are going to just go for, how much money is out there? I mean, I'm really wondering if these others pay off, I guess is what I'm asking ultimately.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question, Chair Sathoff. We have the interesting dynamic of having video lottery in, this state. And so when we compare ourselves to other jurisdictions or other lotteries, you're going to see that their scratch sales really are the highest performers because of their portfolio range. We have some lotteries that have introduced a $30 game, 50. Texas over the summer this past year introduced a $100 ticket. So their customer has the ability to go in and buy scratch. They also jump in when the jackpots are high. But also when you look at our sales for the scratch are still the highest contributor when you look at our overall portfolio. When you look at sales for our Powerball, Mega Millions, Megabucks types of games, when they are not in these big jackpots that are $1 billion, they're relatively low compared to what we achieve on the weekly sales front. So again, we have this interesting dynamic that goes on where video really is kind of the breadwinner, so to speak, but then scratch comes in next. It's quite a bit lower, but it does come in next. So I don't know if
Well, that's good to know. I was actually wondering, wasn't comparing to saying we wouldn't look at other states that don't have VLTs, but those states that do have VLTs, which I think probably are not a lot out there, but I just wondered about that. But it's really good to know that these scratches, we do think overall pay off, meaning they cover our costs, they contribute to the bottom line.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very limited when you get to that level, because when we look at the costs, like you said, there is print costs that are included in that. And so we are still able to make transfers. The profit is very small though on these types of games because of the print costs, the shipping costs, so it still contributes, but it is much smaller.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? All right, moving on. Keno, sales were right on target pretty much. If you look at what our forecast and our actuals were, year over year difference is just, less than 1% decrease. And this last quarter, we had our 8-spot jackpot, again, kind of like what we were just talking about, jackpots do drive this. And it was at a $78,000 jackpot. So, which is a good jackpot to have. And then moving on, our jackpot games, those big $1 billion jackpots contribute to sales. And you will see the difference again to forecast is quite a bit higher. And as we know, it all kind of depends on when jackpots are going to run up. So you'll see those top 3 jackpots this last quarter were quite high, close to $1 billion for Powerball, over $1 billion for Mega Millions. And then our Megabucks also was relatively large. Again, year-to-date sales for both Powerball and Mega Millions are ahead of the previous year because of those large jackpots that we're seeing. And then I just wanted to know, we had raffle that started in January and we sold out on March 9th. And just kind of A little interesting note, this was the first time raffle players have bought the winning ticket, and it was 4 sisters that got together, and so they were excited about claiming this $1 million win. Any questions? All right, so I'm going to move on. We've got SAR who's going to be presenting.
Thank you, Tina. Good morning, Chair Sapoff, Commissioners, Interim Director Wells. For the record, my name is Sar Richards. I am the manager of the video gaming products here at the lottery and presenting this quarter's video lottery update. We're relatively flat to forecast, up about 0.4%. One of the things that helped us this last quarter was the launch of Fu Dai Lian Panda on the Helix. It has jumped up to competing for #1 with Big City 5's Diamond, which was very encouraging for all of us. You do notice that the bar graph, it looks like we took a little bit of a dip this quarter, and kind of like what Tina was saying, last quarter had 14 weeks. I'm sorry, quarter 2 had 14 weeks, quarter 3 had 12 weeks. So by the end of the year, it'll average out to where this was actually a strong quarter as well. Just looking at the weekly numbers, we're up about 5% from last quarter. Any questions on that or overall video performance? Cool. We also started the Cascada field trial, which is going really well. The terminal is performing well on the revenue side. Like with any terminal, there are some issues that come up, but we're fixing them as they come along and should have some more positive news for the next update. I'm going to zip through that. Any questions on video?
Looks good. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Then I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, Director Wells. For the record, my name is Carrie Hemphill, Sports Betting Product Manager, here today to give you the sports betting product update for the last quarter. So before giving the quarter 3 metrics, I want to call your attention to the chart on the screen and kind of the actual and forecast below it. So a little redundant of what Tina and SAR had just mentioned. If you recall, during last quarter's update this past January, I told you that the sports betting product posted above forecast. And we mentioned that we were getting to a point where we had large enough historical data to reasonably formalize our internal process for sports revenue or projecting it out. As a reminder, the sports product forecasting is not an OEA forecast. The forecasting for sports is done internally by the Oregon Lottery team. And with that, our internal forecasting worked well in the past, but it started to miss the mark last quarter where our actual was way above our forecast. And the reason I bring that up is if you can see it here, this quarter shows the opposite. It shows our actual under what our forecast is. So say for turnover, 153 million with our forecast at 180 million. With a negative 14.7 difference. And I just want to make sense of this and clear this up because as a result of cleaning up our internal forecast process and adjusting how we pull the numbers, and we're still working to clean that up, this is a little misrepresenting of what the actual is. So our projection up until this point factored in each quarter as more or less the same size, meaning that we calculated the 13-week window for each quarter, since that's the duration, the majority of the time. And our forecast did not factor in the actual number of weeks within the quarter. So both last time in January, it actually had a 14-week window within that forecast, but we had only factored in 13 weeks. So that's a reason why we showed way over, we discovered. And for this one, for Q3 timeline, there were only 12 weeks. And as you can see here, losing a week in the actual made quite a difference when we assumed the forecast was 13 weeks. So as previously mentioned, it should equal itself out, but we discovered that. And as we're cleaning up the process, moving forward, starting with Q4, next time I present, these forecasts will reflect revised breakdowns where we will take into account the actual number of weeks within the quarter. You'll see here, starting with the Q4 and then business year 24 Q1, we have adjusted all those moving forward. We just did not start with this current time. So just to close on that, just to remind the commission that while we were shoring up the forecasting The sports forecasting has no impact on transfers. And, the thing with forecasts is the sports product is still young. The relationship with DraftKings is only a year old. Our projections are not wildly off, but there is some uncertainty that we're going to work to clear up as we continue to grow and mature. So with that, looking at the Q3 quarter metrics, quarter 3 experienced a drop from quarter 2, but that was not unexpected as football was winding down, accumulating with the Super Bowl in February. But despite the quarter-to-quarter drop on a percentage basis, the weekly revenue was actually higher this business quarter than last quarter. Our per week turnover or dollars played was up 3.3% each week when comparing to last quarter's weeks. What is really good to see is the growth is being driven by a significant increase in unique active players engaging with the platform, which was up 55% this quarter. These additional players have pushed increases in all significant categories while simultaneously reducing the average per bet amount, which indicates more small denomination recreational play. Our registrations have done quite well. In the last quarter, we had just over 17,000 new registrations. The majority of those were in conjunction with the NFL Conference Championships and the Super Bowl, but it does tell us that the base of our players is growing. As sports become more mainstream and more people are exposed to it, the player growth seems reasonable. For us, the increasing customer base can likely be attributed to the DraftKings brand, promotional activity, top-tier market offerings, and just good functionality of the overall product itself. All these are results. The growth is the product is appealing to a wide range of customers. And we are continuing to see that even with our year-over-year growth. So for example, number of bets year-over-year is up 48%. Gross gaming revenue is up 82%. In the quarter, football and basketball were the primary sports, not surprising. Basketball led the way, with the NBA being the main driver of business and the Portland Trail Blazers gathering the most interest per game from our players. Football posted great numbers, and I know it seems so long ago, but because it was in the quarter, Super Bowl was the marquee event. With all of our growth indicators trending positive, we had over 47,000 users betting on the Super Bowl and had over 305 wagers placed on that one event alone. Our gross gaming revenue, though, for the Super Bowl was down from last year, so it's not always positive, but it's not concerning at all. It's just something that ebbs and flows based on the game results. The Super Bowl was a high-scoring game, traditionally favors the public, with game totals and proposition markets hitting at a much higher rate. So it was down, but still everything else trended up in terms of dollars played and the users that came in. We had increases in the Super Bowl with dollars played, the number of bets placed, and I believe it was a 43% increase in unique customers coming into play. Soccer, tennis, ice hockey, MMA, and table tennis were also very good drivers of interest in the quarter. And so that's the summary of the quarter. But before I end, it's all good news here in Oregon. I wanted to address one more topic, and that was during last month's meeting. I listened in on that, and I heard a question was asked on how we were doing with the sports product and if we were where we thought we would be or where we want to be. And I wanted to answer with that within our market, we are positive. We are having a lot of players play a little. So we are seeing a consistent registration growth. And by moving to DraftKings, we are hitting the expectations we thought we would get out of it. Bringing in more players, playing a little was the strategy that we wanted. Here in Oregon, given with the parameters we have around us, we are doing good. When we first started sports betting here, we didn't really know what all our restrictions would be. And within Oregon, given the constraints that we have, we're hitting those expectations. But these constraints do continue to bench us when we compare ourselves to other jurisdictions. If we compare to other states, our GGR per capita is quite a bit lower than our peer states. I believe it's a fifth or so to our peers. So even though we are experiencing a lot of growth in Oregon under DraftKings, when compared to the overall market, we're growing slower than the others. And some of these factors that affect our per capita performance, just to list a few, the absence of college sports as an improved betting option, the lack of retail distribution, our tax structure, and we have relatively low level marketing investment. But I do want to clarify the latter is intentional. Other states have more of a need for competitive marketing, and with ours, we aren't driving people just to wager just because. We're trying to engage them in a positive way. So although we have a low GGR per capita relative to other states, some of these are attributed to our conservative approach. So all that being said, when asked how Oregon Lottery sports product is doing, I will answer that we are given well, considering the strengths we have to work with. But if we do compare ourselves to other states, the restrictions that hold the product in a handful of areas do factor into the overall limitation of our growth. And with that, I will close the sports product update. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments from the commission? It sounds to me, one, I'm encouraged because we really haven't had this new revenue stream for that long. And it does look like we are developing, increasing the market with your new customers, your customer data. It sounds like we have some work to do on managing the business financially, and some of those barriers I know are not ones we can control, but any of those other barriers that we can. I know that you're all trying to think through how do we fix those things. But overall, I'm actually, for this kind of new of a revenue stream, I'm really think you guys are doing well. So it's my only comment, but thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this one? If not, we'll move to Commissioner Communications. Any other business that anyone would like to raise? Oh, wait, I apologize. I don't think we still have Play It Forward campaign. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Good morning, Chair Sathoff, Lottery Commissioners, Interim Director Wells. For the record, my name is Chad Barnes. I'm the Senior Director of Digital Marketing for the Lottery. And Tina, we can move to the next slide. Just a reminder, I presented that we are going to be flagging this campaign back in the fall, and we had some questions around how we track success of our marketing and advertising, and I offered, hey, I'll come back and give you a high-level overview. And so I'm here to do that today, and just kind of was going to mention up front, I'm going to walk you through some very high level with tidbits and highlights. We track what we do on so many dimensions. I could bore you with shop talk for hours, but I thought it would be nice to kind of give you an indication of how we grade success, some of the success markers we have had for this particular campaign, and field any questions and talk through it. So as a reminder, this campaign that we ran in the fall was our return to some brand advertising after a pretty extended break during the lockdown. It communicated a pretty simple message that a little bit of play for many Oregonians adds up to valuable support for the places and programs that Oregonians or Oregon loves. And again, very simple slogan and tagline, play it forward. So when you play it, it moves forward to the programs, which is really the why of the Oregon Lottery, right? It's all about funding these valuable things. Okay, we can go to the next one. So this campaign is a multi-channel campaign. It ran from September 12th to November 13th in 2022, which feels like a long time ago, but when I wake up every day, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. And again, it really connects responsible lottery gameplay and the programs and places funded by Oregon beneficiaries. And you can see the little chart here just kind of shows how we buy and kind of flight our messaging across many customer channels over the entire state. I just mentioned here, we've done a lot over the last 3 or 4 years to really modernize our messaging. Kind of what used to be more of an interruptive slogan based, you kind of see the same slogan over and over and over again, and that was kind of our message. We really have worked hard to have kind of the right message for each of these communication channels, whether it's print or paid social media, broadcast television, radio. So the message is always the same, but it's delivered appropriately for each channel, which is important to how we do find some of these success metrics. And Tina, we can move to the next one. So in general, again, very high level, we have some high focus objectives in communicating with 18+ Oregonian audiences, which typically fall into these 3 areas. The first one is awareness, which is just very much kind of high level. And I'm going to get into the specifics of each of these in a second with some stuff, but really very simply, tracking the number of times our ads were seen. That's really how we grade awareness. I'm going to talk a bit about conversion today, which is how many times one of our ads were either tapped or clicked. And then finally, engagement, which is really an important one for us, which is kind of capturing the interactions between us and customers and interested parties on our digital channels, like our website. So just keep in mind, we're always evaluating against many, many dimensions and metrics. And what I'm about to share is just highlights of the many places that we track. And I will say, before I get into any of this, I'm not going to talk about a lot today, but we do evaluate sales trends as they relate to all of our campaigns and against the mature product portfolio. And we always can see the lift when our brand and product campaigns are live. But I'm not really going to get into a ton of sales metrics today. So moving into awareness, again, it's kind of the primary tracking for that is impressions, which is just how many people saw the stuff that we put out in the world. And then those typical channels are broadcast TV, radio, what we call the traditional channels. And so this campaign delivered 24.5 million impressions across Oregon. And the place that we really look at most when it comes to awareness, and really all of our advertising, is brand favorability. So our most recent study around brand favorability reported that 80% of Oregonians feel positively about the Oregon Lottery. And I will say, these campaigns and our marketing and advertising have a fair amount to do with making people understand that it's not just about gaming, it's about helping fund the why of why we exist. The other thing I'd mention just around awareness is that we've gotten a lot more economical in our approach to that awareness-based advertising over the last 3 to 5 years. We used to spend pretty heavily to buy a lot of TV and a lot of radio and in these traditional channels. And we've really right-sized that approach down and found an awful lot of marketing and advertising savings over the last 3 to 5 years. And most of that savings comes from not spending as much as we used to on some of those traditional mediums, and really have kind of gotten down to results and metrics that we can kind of follow on the digital channel, which kind of gets us into the next bucket, which is conversion. And conversion really is tracking those taps and clicks that each of our ads kind of get. In general, I would say our team is pretty adept at creating kind of authentically Oregon relevant advertising. And that has a lot to do with how we perform in kind of these digital realms. And so with conversion, and specifically with what we do here, I'm gonna get into kind of some of that success, but I would say the world today is a very mobile world. Everybody's using a mobile device like a phone or a tablet or something else. And so important to note that most of our conversion, 91% of it, especially ad generated traffic, comes from mobile devices, which very much makes it important for us to optimize how we communicate via mobile device. And speaking of optimization, you know, a different kind of form of optimization is that we're constantly evaluating our ads as they're flighted. So the lowest performing percentage, depending on, you know, how many low performers there are being pushed out of the market as quickly as we can, and either and move those dollars to the ones that are performing well or push them out. So that system optimization ensures that we're always successful with these campaigns. And so, you know, in general, you know, and you can see the numbers here, we had about 70,000 OregonLottery.org sessions that occurred as a result of this campaign. And the ratio of the sessions driven was a tracking piece we call CTR, or click-through ratio. And this is every ad campaign, because again, there are hundreds of dimensions here, but if you aggregate it all up, it was 0.36 overall click-through ratio. which is very high when you benchmark us against any other advertiser, really extremely high. And again, that comes back to kind of the relevant advertising we create and that robust optimization system we follow. And just so you know, the typical CTR across all other industries is 0.06. So 0.36% is extremely good. And just as a interesting side note, Facebook ads were our top performer of this campaign, and that was a 3.26% click-through ratio, which is like 10x over benchmark on Facebook. That was it's a really good percentage there. And then finally, kind of the coup de grace for us, really, in terms of how we kind of grade success, comes down to engagement. And again, engagement is just the actions that our audience takes once they do visit or tap or click through to come and see us. And so for this Play It Forward campaign, a lot of the engagement centered around this landing page where visitors were asked to describe how they would pay it forward if they were to win a lottery prize. Again, kind of getting into the Play It Forward, and then what does that mean to you as an Oregonian? So I'm proud to share that we had nearly 16,000 Oregonians who took time to complete this web form and give us their story of what would they do with those dollars. Now, that's a really big deal. 16,000 people that come on and kind of tell us their story. And I'm going to share some of those stories in a second here. Taking time out of their day to do that is tremendous engagement. So we had over 125,000 sessions that came to all of our digital properties as a part of this campaign. We track time on site, which is TOS, and that meant that anybody that came and visit, on average, they spent 3 minutes on our website reading these stories, reading these success stories about some of the programs that were funded as a part of lottery dollars, the transfers that take place. With the one that had the most visits was a special detail page that highlighted some information around Wallowa State Park as a part of our state parks beneficiary piece. And then as another piece that we track, and I'm telling you, I've got hundreds of these dimensions, but our mobile app users, registered users, grew by over 58,000 people over the course of this campaign as well. So before I kind of share this engagement story, I just would say, how do we grade success? Well, it's graded on so many dimensions, but I'm trying to kind of share some highlights here to give you an indication of this. This was a very successful campaign, but most of ours are very successful because we follow a system that is tried and true. But we are always looking at how we can kind of continuously improve in this work. So finally, just kind of going back to some of that engagement and what we saw, I thought it'd be fun to see just a smattering of what people wrote in, because these are real stories. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but truly, we had almost 16,000 of these entries come in, and they all look like this. We read them for hours and hours and hours, and they were inspiring and heartwarming, and they felt terrific. And it really is good for us to always stay connected to who our Oregonian community is. And it really brings home that, the lottery is a trusted and fair institution that people appreciate. So I'll just read a couple of these, and then I can kind of open this up for questions. So, Dana said, I would pay for the person or persons in line with me at the grocery store. Rising costs are tough on so many right now. I would pay it forward to my wife, who could have the vacation she's always deserved. A lot of people would talk about their causes and charities that were important to them, and it really was wonderful for our team and to share amongst the lottery employees how impactful some of the work we do really is. And with that, I know I sped through a lot. I just wondered if you have any questions or if there's anything else you wanted me to kind of focus in on.
Questions or comments from the commission? Shad, I think I have been one of the commission in the past who has asked off and on whether we track or analyze our marketing and our branding to see if we think we are whether it's working for us, if it drives results. And I got to say that I was very impressed with the conversion and the engagement data that you provided. And I just think you guys are doing a great job here. I loved this campaign, Play It Forward. So just no questions from me, but just commending you. And I am extremely impressed with how much you're getting increasing on the digital platform. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Safoff. That does mean a lot. Appreciate you mentioning it. And anytime, we're always happy to come and share.
With that, I think we are done now with the staff updates. And we'll move to Commissioner communications or any other business. This is just open for anyone to raise questions or things they would like to communicate to the commission.
This is our Commissioner Wilcox. I have a comment to make. Echoing your early comments, Chair Sathoff. I also want to recognize all lottery staff for the hard work put into the agency on a consistent basis. Across the board, the Oregon State Lottery is a hardworking organization, and I'm proud to serve as a commissioner.
Thanks, Julie. I'm sure that you have articulated what many of us feel, so thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, this concludes today's meeting of the Oregon State Lottery Commission. The next meeting is scheduled on May 19. And thank you for all attending today's meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.